Ladies and gentlemen, hello there, and welcome to another edition of the Fightful Select NXT UK recap, NXT 205 Live NXT UK recap show right here on Fightful Select, and I am Mr. Warren Hayes, and I hope everyone is having a wonderful evening because it's a wonderful evening to be a fan of the top 3 hours of professional wrestling that is offered to us by the fine folks at World Wrestling Entertainment. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad to be here, and I'm mostly glad that you guys are here on FightfulSelect.com, showing your support to everything that we do here at Fightful, and that is always extremely appreciated, 100% appreciated, because we try to give you as much content as we can, try to give you as much interesting stuff as we can. And again, there's been a whole influx of members recently, all sorts of new people joining. So if you haven't taken the time to go through everything that Fightful Select has to offer, well, why don't you? There's podcasts like this. When I do this live every Wednesday evening, I do these live exclusively here on Fightful Select. Steven Jensen does the Weekender podcast every Saturday where he covers all non-WWE programming. You have Sean Ross Sapp, who does the Fightful Report every Wednesday as well. He does Q&A sessions as well. There's Sean and I do monthly retro reviews. I didn't know if you took the time to see just this week, Sean and I reviewed the first Nitro. That was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to go back in context there, sort of to remind us what was going on at the time. It was a good time. It was a lot of fun. It really was a fun show. So go take the time to browse through all of that and see everything that Fightful Select has to offer. But as for me, I'm going to be talking about NXT UK, 205 Live, and as typical, usual patrons of the show know, well, if there's some news related to any of these three promotions, I like to talk about it before we actually get into matches, such as NXT UK TakeOver Cardiff being announced for August 31st, 2019. That was revealed this weekend during the TakeOver 25. So exactly, it'll take place in Cardiff, Wales, and will air on WWE Network at 3 p.m. Eastern. Obviously the second TakeOver event that's going to happen. A lot of people got really, really mad because, of course, it's the same day as All Out. What's that all about? Competition. All Out's in the evening. Relax. They're airing at the same day as the New Japan UK event. Well, this is what happens when you have competition, folks, right? Sometimes you're going to have to make some difficult choices. I know you can't watch everything. I can't watch everything. I don't know how anyone does manage without getting a full-time paid salary to watch wrestling, and that doesn't exist all that much. Not exactly an open position that you can find on, in the classifieds or on Craigslist. Do people still use Craigslist? I mean, outside of, meeting people is what I mean. So that'll be exciting. That's good. I enjoyed Blackpool, their first event. Very, very that that their second show is going to be even better. We also got word that at least through Wrestle Talk this week, our boy on Fightful, Jeremy Lambert, we had a little write-up on it on Fightful.com. It was announced that WWE is holding women's tryouts at the UK Performance Center this week, and the following names are reportedly going to be are reportedly scheduled to take part in these tryouts. We have Rio, who is 22 years old, and she's wrestled in northern UK promotions such as Title, TNT, PCW. You have Shax, who is a 5 foot tall, 6-year pro who's worked for WrestleGate, Pro Wrestling Chaos, and Southside. She has a burlesque gimmick, so that's I think that's kind of what they were trying to go for with Nina Samuels on NXT UK without actually going fully in on the burlesque thing, but you kind of got that vibe. But that's interesting. We have Kanji, who became the Defiant Women's Champion at the end of 2018. Debbie Keitel, who is a regular in OTT in Ireland. Valkyrie, who teams with Keitel, not to be confounded with Taya Valkyrie from Impact. This is another one. Candy Floss, who has had several appearances on NXT UK. Jade, who competes for Hope, Southside, Kamikaze Pro, and IWL. Jessica Light, who is a Zach Gibson protege. And Heather, a trainee from British legend Marty Jones's wrestling school. So that's upcoming. We'll see what kind of results we get out of that. But that's always good to see that they're still looking to expand this. They're already very, very profound and deep talent pool, women's talent pool in NXT UK. Also learned this week that the NXT UK Women's Champion is going to be defended on in ICW, Insane Championship Wrestling. They announced that NXT UK Women's Champion Toni Storm is going to defend against Piper Niven on July 28th at an event called Shrugs Hoose Party 6. And I did not mispronounce house. They spell it HOOSE. So still going down. It's still nice to see that WWE is maintaining relationship with some of the some independent wrestling promotions. That's always good to see. As you may recall, a lot of people were very, very worried when NXT UK got off the ground. So a lot of people were heralding it as the end of the British indie scene. Not quite. Not if these working relationships still go on. And finally, a last tidbit of news. You know, WWE, they love to change people's names, don't they? Well, 5 NXT stars are having their names changed. And again, this is our boy Jeremy Lambert, who had the write-up over on Fightful. We have Adrian Jaud, who is now going to be known as Arturo Ruas. Trevor Lee is now going to be called Cameron Grimes. Jesse Elabon will now be known as Jesse Kamea. Luke Menzies is going to be called Ridge Holland. That's the Ridge Holland. That sounds like a porn star name to me. That really, really does. Ridge Holland. And Eric Bugenhagen will now simply be referred to as Rick Buges or Buges. I guess it's Buges. Bugez. I'll miss the Bugenhagen because the fact that his last name was Bugenhagen, that he was, he's basically like his gimmick is being, this 80s rocker guy. It just fits. It fits to have, it works to have, the lead singer of your band have a very unique surname like Bugenhagen. That's funny. So, And this is a report, right? It hasn't been confirmed yet. NXT hasn't actually gone off and said, yes, we're going through with these changes. None of the superstars uh, officially have these names changed on the main website. So there you go. We're also getting the next round of television tapings is June 12th. NXT. We're all going to be excited to see. Not just me, you as well. We're all excited. Excited, excitable people. All right. Well, let's get to it. Let's start talking about 205 Live here. We're going to have our first match of the evening. Akira Tozawa, who is positioned to be a contender for Tony Nese's cruiserweight championship, but he's not the number one contender. And this is what it's all making sense now as of tonight. I see where they're going. I see what they're doing with this. But I last week, he or was it the week before? I can't quite remember. But Akira Tozawa had won a match, to sort of earn the right to challenge. And then Tony Nese was like, no, but yeah, that's it. It was 2 weeks ago he did that. And then last week, Tony Nese said, I want Akira Tozawa as the number one contender. And Jake Maverick said, I'll take it into consideration. I'm like, well, why don't we just go ahead and do it? Now the picture is becoming clearer. Akira Tozawa was facing Noam Dar. Noam Dar comes out, but gets attacked by Drew Gulak at the top of the ramp during his entrance. Gosh darn it. But here's the thing, Drew Gulak sporting a somewhat new look. He had been tweeting out recently. He had been tweeting out references to nuclear bombs, as if he was ready to explode, kind of thing. And I think we saw that tonight. He's got slick black hair. It's all slicked back, kind of like Tony Nese. It seems darker to me. I don't know. Like he's a little more brown, a little more reddish brown. Usually, maybe it was just the lighting, but it seemed a lot darker to me. He trimmed his beard. He has black trunks, black boots. A whole new look for Drew Gulak tonight. And he attacks Noam Dar. He tosses him into the stairs, into the steel stairs, and he even drop kicks Dar's surgically repaired knee. That brings Drake Maverick out. Who's mad? He's pissed. But Drake decides to make the match nonetheless because Noam Dar can't compete. Akira Tozawa was ready for him. So Drake makes the match. So instead of getting Tozawa versus Dar, we're getting Tozawa versus Gulak. And Tozawa attacks Drew immediately at the bell, laying in some strikes and some kicks. Gulak fights back with some chops. But Tozawa gets back on top of the situation. Hurricane Run as your boy Drew hits a Shining Wizard on him as well. The senton covers Drew, who kicks out at 2. Tozawa follows with some strikes, stomps him in the corner. Gulak gets a headbutt in and a follow-away slam, followed by a running kick. He covers Tozawa, but he as well only gets 2. But then Gulak locks in a cravat. I love saying cravat. I think it's one of the most beautiful words of the English language, when in fact it is a French word, which is like essentially a necktie. I occasionally, on special occasions, will wear a cravate, which is essentially a necktie, a cravat. See, if you're new to Fightful Select, not only do you get all sorts of fantastic wrestling coverage, but you learn shit. Tozawa fights out of the cravat, then tries to go for an octopus hold, But Gulak's having none of it. Hits a gut wrench suplex. Covers Tozawa again, but only gets 2. Tozawa powers out of some headlocks. When Gulak follows with some elbow drops, a snap suplex as well. Again, another cover, but only gets 2. Gulak grounds things again, laying in a hell of an elbow to the side of Akira Tozawa's face. So much so that they had to show it on replay. Gulak continues to ground Tozawa. Tozawa fights back and lays in some strikes of his own and enziguri. Gulak moves out of the way for the he actually tumbles to the ground, to the floor. Tozawa goes for a dive, but Gulak just moves out of the way. He's a smart guy. Goes around the ring, and Tozawa follows him with a cannonball off the apron onto your boy Drew. My boy Drew. Should all be our boy. He then slams Gulak onto the announce table, runs back into the ring, and suicide dives onto Drew Gulak over the commentary table. We're back into the ring now. Tozawa hits a missile drop kick, covers Gulak again, only gets 2. Tozawa does the fake out and jab, gets Gulak into the octopus hole, drags him to the mat, but eventually Drew does make the ropes to bring it up. Gulak avoids a shining wizard, locks in the cloverleaf, but Tozawa as well eventually makes it to the ropes. They trade some strikes. Gulak takes Tozawa down with a lariat. Gut wrench suplex again follows, only gets 2 with the cover. Some evasiveness occurs, and Tozawa heads up top for his senton. But Gulak runs right up top and hits a superplex. Drew Gulak off his feet, safe and sound, feet on the ground, no more. And he ends the match with an Argentine backbreaker into a neck breaker for the win. Now, gotta tell you, you people, gotta tell you something. I am shocked, I tells you, that they're doing this to Drew, like they're doing the reinvention. Not that I think it's a bad idea. I think it's fine. This actually finally feels like championship Drew. I think they're uncorking something here for Drew Gulak. Definite change of style in the ring. Not a complete 180 from what we're used to, but much more power-based, not as much dependent on grappling and submissions. Now he's pulling out the power moves, a lot more strength-based offense. It was a different Drew Gulak that we had in the ring. Just last Wednesday on NXT, we had him wrestle a fantastic mat match against Kushida. Well, there was none of that. There was none of that Drew Gulak here this evening. We had a power-based, strength-based guy. Feels like they're going down a direction where they'll feel comfortable, perhaps making him Cruiserweight champion, perhaps your boy Warren being 100% okay with that, because Drew Gulak should have got the title a long time ago. And Drew is fantastic. He's always been fantastic. I have always been a huge fan of his work. He is one of the NXT, not the NXT, but the 205 Live originals. And seeing him back in the shape he is tonight, it just reminds me just how much of a star this guy is. And he's going to outgrow the Cruiserweight division very, very quickly if they go down this route. I just hope that they maintain the gimmick in a way where he can continue to use his mic work. He's one of the best mic workers in WWE. He's just people always seem to forget about him, but I don't forget about Drew Gulak. I don't. when it comes to things that make me feel good, I have I have a tendency to not forget about them, and I want more. I want more Drew Gulak. But the one thing that I find is a bummer, though, is that, well, if the Argentine backbreaker neckbreaker combo is his new finisher, that means there's no more Dragon Sleeper, and that sucks because Drew Gulak's Dragon Sleeper always looks severe. We go backstage now. We have Mike Kanellis, who cuts a promo with his wife Maria Kanellis looking on. We have Tony Nese, who said that he didn't agree with Drake Maverick's decision to have the match anyway with Akira Tozawa and Drew Gulak, despite because of the attack, because Noam Dar was taken out. And Tony says, Drake Maverick is our general manager, but he has a lot on his mind right these days, hasn't he? And I find it interesting, where Tony Nese is like questioning Drake Maverick, but he's like, it's fine, but I know, he's chasing the 24/7 title. So you wonder what is he going to do with so you sort of wonder if they're going to push this on 205 Live, if they're going to actually keep referencing this, and maybe Drake Maverick's credibility in the eyes of the cruiserweight division is going to erode. And to me, that's a huge dichotomy. It's like to me right now, it's a huge dichotomy because Drake Maverick has always been presented as a very credible, fair GM, and now he's just running around being a goofball, having fantastic segments. Don't get me wrong. When he dove last night on SmackDown to try and catch R-Truth, like he did a whole full body dive, that was hilarious. I thought that was fantastic. And everything he's been doing on social media as well, he's making the most out of this. So, but the thing is that it does counter to his 205 Live character. There's really a dichotomy between the two. And then the Lucha House Party hyped their match against Lars Sullivan at Super Showdown this weekend. Yeah. and then they want to fight the Bollywood boys again, the Singh brothers. That's going to happen. Main event time, Oni Lorcan versus Arya Daivari. Man, I love some Oni Lorcan. He's got black and yellow gear on. Now, I don't know if he's representing the Boston Bruins because he's from Boston, or if it's his NXT colors. I don't know what it is, but it looks good, and I'm glad that they've decided to not go heel with Oni. I think he works better as a babyface because of his grit. He's got babyface grit. Anyway, he and Daivari lock up. Test of strength follows. There's a lot of back and forth with these strength tests at first. Lorcan eventually gets going, shoulder tackles Daivari down, hits him with those nice Oni Lorcan uppercuts. Goes up onto the top rope with a flying cross body, covers Daivari, but only gets, that's right, 2. Lorcan starts working the arm. He has Daivari on an arm bar, but eventually Daivari makes the ropes. Daivari rolls to the floor for just a bit of a stall, just a little bit of a stall. He waits till Lorcan follows him out. Then Daivari dashes back into the ring. So Lorcan's like, "Well, all right, I'll follow you back in," and he follows him back into the ring. But it was a trap because Daivari goes to drop an elbow on him, but Lorcan knew it was a trap and he moved out of the way. The elbow hit nothing but the mat. Arya Daivari, you don't have ring smarts like my boy Oni. But eventually Daivari does get a neck breaker on Lorcan, and hits a nutsoid lariat where he covers Oni for 2. Lays the boots. He lays the boots, to Lorcan, rakes the eyes, and they start trading more strikes. Daivari eventually gets an iconoclasm on Lorcan, covers him, but only gets 2. And Daivari goes up to the top rope and fails his frog splash attempt. Lorcan starts fighting back with some strikes, starts hitting those wonderfully crazy running European uppercuts. Hits an overhead suplex. A blockbuster, covers Daivari again, only gets 2. Daivari avoids the half and half suplex, and Oni avoids the hammerlock lariat. But Daivari finally gets a super kick on him. Divorce cord follows. There's something I don't scream out in a wrestling recap show every day. By Oni Lorcan. He covers Daivari, but only gets 2. Lorcan lays in some of his patented chops. We have to, when we talk about Walter's chops, there's some people that we do have to add into that conversation. We have to add in Trent Seven, and we have to add in Oni Lorcan. Those look like they hurt every single time. Roderick Strong, those guys, they just like to lay in with them. But Daivari eventually gets $1 million dream in. Lorcan fights out, but Daivari hits an inverted DDT, hits the frog splash, covers Lorcan, but Lorcan, from within the pin position, reverses it into a crucifix pin for the win. And the man they call the Fury of 205 Live, God damn it, that doesn't sound great, wins, gets a win over Daivari, who tries to attack Oni, but Oni just moves out of the way, pulls down the top rope, and Daivari hits the bricks right over the top rope. I liked it. I liked the ending. Didn't care much for the match, to be honest. It's not that the match was bad. It was a fine match. It was okay. But Arya Daivari, I get it. He's a heel, and heels have to slow things down, but there's holy smokes. That was some slow molasses right there when he was in control. Towards the end, it got really, really exciting with the back and forth. Oni's so great. Oni is so good. He is so damn good and a credible physical brawler. God, I love that man. I love him so much. Fun episode. I really liked the first match between Tozawa and Gulak. And I talked about a lot about Drew. Just want to go back for a second. Akira Tozawa, man. There's another original 205 guy, and one of the only of those of these guys who really has managed to create a presence within the audience. They know about his chants, ha. There were people actually chanting that in the audience as he was wrestling. He doesn't get enough love. He really doesn't. And he has a connection with the audience. He's a great baby face and a fantastic worker. He's solid. Every time he's solid. Akira Tozawa, cheers to you. NXT time. We are off a takeover. So you know what that means this week. It's a recap show. Not much going on, but we did get 2 matches. We got which were dark matches this week at a takeover. First and foremost, we got Keith Lee versus the finest, Kona Reeves. Match starts off with Lee and Kona getting into knuckle locks, but Keith Lee stays in control as Reeves tries to get out of him. But he stays in control with just one arm, and he just will not relinquish the hold. There's not much Kona can do. He tries to fight out of it, but Lee just keeps holding on to the knuckle lock. Eventually, Lee pops Reeves up over his head, and Reeves lands on his legs. And of course, it's the return. He tweaks his knee. I've talked about this before on other editions of this show and on my own show that you could, if you ever want to check it out, it's at youtube.com/Mr. Warren Hayes. You can go subscribe there as well. There was a time last year where the knee tweak was used every week. You'd see someone do a basic somersault or a leapfrog, and they'd land and and then they tweak their knee, and then it would either be a fake out or a kayfabe injury that they could use in the storyline, in the story of the match. And sometimes you'd see them once or twice. And then for the longest time, we didn't see the knee tweaks anymore. But the knee tweaks have been back for about, in the last month, we must have seen at least 5 knee tweaks on WWE television. I hate them. They're once in a while. They're fine. But now they're making a comeback. Everyone's doing it again. Hate the knee tweaks. Anyway. So Kona Reeves is doing the knee tweak, and then the referee's checking on him, and then, everything gets serious. Oh no, he landed awkwardly. No, I don't know what's going to happen. And then Keith Lee's like, look, I just want to check on him, So he comes in, he comes in to check on Kona Reeves, who surprises him with a headbutt. Reeves gets a whole bunch of offense in after this headbutt. He hits a big kick to the face, a knee lift. He covers Lee, but only gets 1. Reeves comes back with some punches, gets Lee to his knees. Lee grabs the wrist, but Kona tries to break out, but he tries punching Keith Lee to the face, but Lee's not letting go. In fact, he gets back up and he starts some short arm strikes on Kona Reeves, running crossbody. Reeves then fakes out Lee, hits a Uranagi, covers him, but only gets 2. But Lee's back up. He's hulking up. He gets some strikes in, a headbutt, a pounce, and the limit breaker for the win. Fun little match. Good warm up. Had I been in the audience for TakeOver, it would have got me in a good mood. It was a fun match. And, as much as I like to rag on Kona Reeves and just give him a hard time because he gives us all the reasons in the world to, I really feel that this was his best outing in NXT. I really, really do think that. This was a real fun match between both Lee and Reeves. I really thought this was his best showing so far. Good on him. I mean, if he keeps down this path, why not? Maybe I'll stop making fun of him. No promises. Next, we have a women's match, not just a woman, 2 women having a match, a wrestling match together. Mia Yim and Bianca Belair. It's the rubber match of their series that they've been having, their undercard mini feud, which has produced so far 2 entertaining matches with some fun finishes. So we're expecting something similar here. And boy, this is what we got. Both women lock up to start. Bianca gets the advantage early on, but Yim hits a gut wrench slam and a sunset flip with a big arm drag that follows as well. So a cool little sequence there from Yim. She hits a head scissors on Bianca, but Bianca fights back and hits an X Factor. And then she starts wailing on Yim with those big, big forearms. And man, I do not want Bianca Belair cracking her forearms across my back. Them's gotta hurt. Big Lariat takes Yim down. Belair covers Yim, but only gets 2. We have an abdominal stretch that follows Belair with a spinning gut buster, covers Yim, but only gets 2. She gets Yim all tangled up into a bow and arrow. Well done stuff. But Yim flips out of the not like flips out like, bah! But she actually flips out of the bow and arrow and lands right on top of Belair for a pin. But of course, Belair kicks out. Pin attempt. Belair kicks out. Yim fights back, but eats another X Factor. Yim tries to go for an armbar a little later on, but Belair fights back. However, it's countered by Yim, who goes for a guillotine, but Belair fights out of it. So there's a lot of back and forth here between our two competitors. Belair wraps Yim around the post on the outside until Yim drives Belair into the post, shoulder first. On the floor, Belair goes for a double underhook slam, but it's reversed by Yim, who shoves Belair into the stairs. She rolls Bianca back into the ring, gets some yes kicks on her, basement drop kick, sets her up into a tarantula. Code Red covers Bianca, but who kicks out at 2.9? Belair hits a huge belly-to-back overhead slam. That was nuts. Yim lands hard on her face, ya dudes. Belair wraps up her braid because, as you may recall, last match, Yim used the braid to get one on Belair, but Belair's not taking any chances. She wraps it all the way up, but Yim gets Belair into a guillotine again. Belair eventually gets out, eats a penalty kick from Yim, and the match comes to an end when Yim hits a second turnbuckle. Protect your neck. Yeah, that's something that happened. Mia Yim gets the rubber match win, pins Bianca Belair again. Who's getting a push? Mia Yim. That's fantastic. I am all for that. Can you imagine more Mia Yim and Shayna Baszler? I can, and I want it. Holy shit. This was a fun match. I think, look, Belair and Yim, they work similar styles. They have great chemistry together. This is the kind of situation where I say to myself, fight forever, ladies. They could give me matches with these two every week, and I would be thrilled. I would not complain until they start doing it 52 times a year. Then I'd probably start bitching. But this was really, it was a fantastic match. One of the better WWE women's matches we saw on television this week. I'd put it up there with the triple threat that we had on SmackDown last night. Those were great matches. So other than recapping the events that happened at TakeOver this weekend, again, it's to be expected. It's a recap. It's a post TakeOver NXT. So we know these things happen. So there wasn't much more substance to it. If you want to know what I thought about NXT TakeOver this weekend, well, head on over to Fightful.com or the YouTube channel at youtube.com/Fightful. And you look for the TakeOver pay-per-view recap show. I had the pleasure of joining Sean and Alex and Jeffrey. Had the pleasure of joining all three of them to discuss TakeOver. It was a good time. It was a fun show. I loved it. Loved Riddle versus Strong. It was so good. But you can check out my full thoughts over there. Next week, we have a bunch of matches already announced. Kushida versus Gulak 2 in a submission match next week. So that's going to be fun as hell. We have Lorcan and Birch versus the Undisputed Era, but the Undisputed Era being Kyle O'Reilly and Roderick Strong, because goddamn, it looks like Bobby Fish is injured again, and that just breaks my heart. He did walk away with his arm in a sling. Man, that sucks. It really sucks. And we're getting another tag team match, women's tag this time. Io Shirai and Candice LeRae versus Jessamine Duke and Marina Shafir. Something to look forward to. Should be a fun show. Let's talk about NXT UK, everyone. If you let me. Okay, thank you. NXT UK, we're starting to count down towards TakeOver Cardiff. And this episode of NXT UK starts off with tag team action. The Hunt, Wild Boar, and Primate, who do not have full names anymore, versus Tyson T-Bone and Saxon Huxley. Now, Nigel, I don't know. Nigel told us that earlier in the day he had spoke to Saxon Huxley, who's one of these NXT guys, NXT UK guys, who's, his character is not really clear. You're not quite sure what he's supposed to be. He's a guy. He has this wild look in his eye. Kind of looks like Luke Harper a little bit, but he wears like a long jacket. And he, you're not quite sure what it's supposed to be, but Nigel starts talking about him being like a regular man on a mythical quest, whatever. And he said earlier in the day, he spoke to Saxon Huxley, and Saxon Huxley told Nigel that he has a new catchphrase. Nigel says, "Are you guys ready for this?" He had the permission to premiere it. Here's his new catchphrase. Saxon Huxley's new catchphrase goes like this. There he goes. There goes Saxon Huxley. I love that. And Nigel said, print it on a t-shirt. There he goes. There goes Saxon Huxley. I love that. I want that to be my catchphrase. Why didn't I think of that? Anyway, there's some wrestling that happened here. Primate and Huxley started off. Boar takes control after a short while. Boar is whipped into the ropes, and Huxley hits a Fez press where he starfishes in the air. He just jumps really, really hard and just lands on Boar in a complete starfish position. T-Bone is in, strikes Boar, kick to the back, and hits a kick to the back. Huxley is in with some knee strikes. T-Bone gets a gut wrench suplex in, covers, but only gets two. But eventually, Boar gets the tag into Primate. I don't want to call it a hot tag. The audience wasn't that into it. But Primate runs roughshod across the ring. He suplexes Saxon. Boar takes out T-Bone Tyson on the outside with a chop block. Then he goes back in, hits the senton in the corner, and the boys do their pop-up German, which was technically their finisher, but apparently they have a new one where they do synchronized or stereo top rope headbutts. And I'm no diving headbutts. Nope. I don't like diving headbutts. Diving headbutts are the worst. They really, really are. God, I hate diving headbutts. And if you're wondering, perhaps, why, Warren? Why do you dislike diving headbutts? I don't dislike them. I hate them. Just look at the damage that it did to Dynamite Kid throughout his career. Pretty sure it didn't do Chris Benoit any favors. It's been a big source of neck injuries and concussions throughout the years towards anyone who's used it regularly. Harley Race was the man who invented Harley Race was the man who invented the diving headbutt. He himself has said that he regrets ever doing that. It's been a detriment to a lot of wrestlers. Lars Sullivan was doing it for a while, and he stopped, and that's a good thing. No one should do diving headbutts. Not on the reg. It's a terrible it's a terrible move. You're always exposing your neck. Always exposing your neck, regardless of how you're doing it. It's just one of those that if you do in perpetuity, just over and over again, you're going to end up, as we say in English, fucking yourself up. So anyway, I mean, I'm not producing their shows. So. Next week we're getting Joseph Connors, the thrilling Joseph Connors versus Ilya Dragunov. Guess who's eating next week and who is being fed? Next we have Kaylee Ray versus Casey Owens. Little showcase match here for your girl Kaylee Ray. They both of them lock up, and Ray gets her name chanted early on. In fact, she even gets ICW chants, ICW, because she is the current women's champion. So there's a bit of back and forth between her and Owens. Kylie Ray extends her hand in sportsmanship. Owens goes to shake it, but she gets sucker punched. Ray follows with some strikes. He tosses Owens to the floor. She follows her out and continues her attack, gets Owens back into the ring and works her arm. Owens fires back with a huge slap to Kylie Ray's face, but Ray responds with a drop kick. Ray continues to go after the arm. Crescent kick by Ray. Owens gets some kicks in of her own. Knee strike in the corner. But Ray hits a super kick and the Widow's Peak for the win. So, if you've never seen... hang on, let me start over again. Nigel keeps putting over on commentary the fact that she's this daredevil. She's this crazy, insane woman, she being Kylie Ray, who is ready to do anything with her body to win a match. Like, she'll put herself through anything. Even at some point calls her... the Scottish Sabu. That's how much she basically putting herself over as a daredevil. Now, this is what it's the third match on NXT UK, if I'm not mistaken, and it's the third time they talk about her being like this crazy woman. If you've watched anything from ICW on the internet, or perhaps even had the chance to see her live, well, you know that she is batshit crazy in the ring, but we haven't seen that yet, and I think it's time to open that Pandora's box here. I think it's time for us to for the NXT UK fans to see Kylie Ray in her true form, in her final form, just jumping off shit and being ridiculous and driving her body through shit. Because that's what she does. Otherwise it's just hype. Because there was nothing daredevil-y in this match tonight. It was very, very bog standard. There was nothing to it. I think it's just, if you're going to talk about it, at some point you have to stop talking about it. You have to put up or shut up. It's about time. It's about time we put up. Because it won't be doing Kylie Ray any favors if she doesn't have a chance to really shine in the crazy nut bar way that she can. Backstage, we see Ginny and Jazzy Gabert. They're friends. Ginny said she either had to fight Jazzy or befriend her, so she decided to befriend her, and she's the most fashionable and richest and most beautiful of all the ladies in NXT UK. And that's such a good pairing. Ginny and Jazzy Gabert. It's fantastic stuff. Zach Gibson and James Drake, the grizzled young veterans, hit the ring for another fantastic Zach Gibson promo. Man, I love this guy. I love him so much. And James Drake now, his suits, he wears the worst plaid suits. Like he literally looks like one of these, older mob guys from like the late 60s, early 70s, who thinks he's looking cool and is, but he's not. It's fantastic. He just looks terrible. So Gibson has the mic, and he says that today he's learned that management has asked them to defend their titles in front of some sweaty goths at the Download Festival. And the crowd starts chanting, sweaty goths, of course. And you got to love Zach Gibson because he sees the audience having a little too much fun with this, and he goes right after them to shut them down. He's like, no. This isn't about you. Shut up. I thought that was fantastic. God, I love Zach Gibson's mic work. And Gibson, he still can't believe he has to defend that they have to defend their title. And he's talking to management in the back and he says, are you having a laugh? Is this a rib? He says he's not happy to have to walk through a muddy field to defend the titles while bands like Slipknot butcher music in the background. He is not happy and completely afire. He says that they are locker room leaders, they being he and James Drake. They hold the most important titles in WWE, and he tells Johnny Saint, you need to respect us, treat us with respect, because if we're unhappy, the locker room is unhappy. Sort it out, old man, is what he says. But I think he's barking up the wrong tree because I still maintain, I'm still very, very sure that Sid Scala has kidnapped Johnny Saint and is keeping him in a hole in his basement somewhere in his townhouse in London. And he keeps a lid over the hole and he feeds Johnny Saint like water. Well, you don't feed him water. You give him water and feeds him like table scraps once Sid is done eating. Johnny Saint's nowhere to be found. Sid Scala is out of control. Main event time, ladies and gents. Joe Coffey versus Travis Banks versus Dave Mastiff versus Jordan Devlin. This is for a shot at the NXT UK Championship, which is currently held by Walter, who will effectively devour the winner. Everyone hits the ring. Jordan Devlin has a new Titantron because, of course, you're going to invest in giving Jordan Devlin nothing but the best because he is the best. Everyone starts talking shit in the ring, and we are off. Banks attacks Devlin as they head to the floor. They have history. It's been referenced. It's still good. It works. Coffey and Mastiff start just running into each other, basically, and they tumble to the floor as well. Banks goes for a dive on Mastiff, but Mastiff catches him and runs him into the barricade. Devlin does the same onto Coffey, but he overshoots a little bit, and he kind of takes himself out on the barricade. All four men are down on the floor. We go back in the ring, and Banks does some ground and pound on Devlin. Yeah, he hits some yes kicks on both Devlin and Joe Coffey, who was in the ring as well. Banks follows with kicks and a German suplex. Running uppercuts follow, and he trips Jordan Devlin right head first, and he falls head first into Joe Coffey's crotch. Mastiff with some rolling Germans on Travis Banks follow, and a release German on Joe Coffey. Rolling Germans on Devlin now. He covers Devlin, but only gets two. Joseph Coffey strikes Mastiff, tries to lift him up, but he can't. So instead, he whips Mastiff into the ropes and goes for a power slam. Covers Mastiff, but only gets two. Banks is in. Coffey interrupts him, gets the big swing on him. Then Devlin climbs on his back So Joe does the big swing, still holding on to Banks with Jordan on his shoulders, and it's a little contrived. It's a little contrived. Slams him down and covers Banks, but only gets 2. He hits the swinging butterfly suplex on Devlin, covers him, but only gets 2 again. Devlin starts to fight back. He tosses Coffee into the post. And Coffee rolls to the floor. Devlin's is alone in the ring with Travis Banks. He hits the Uranagi and the standing moonsault, covers Banks, but only gets 2. Running back elbow and dumps Mastiff onto the floor, and he continues to work on Travis Banks. Joe Coffey gets back in, and he teams up with Dave Mastiff to take out Devlin with some strikes. Banks joins in, and they just dump your poor boy, Jordan Devlin, onto the floor. Banks with a super kick. Banks goes to work on Coffee, but Mastiff gets him with the German suplex, covers him, but only gets 2. Jordan's back in. He gets a headbutt on Mastiff. Tries to go for a Saito suplex, but there's no point in trying to lift Dave Mastiff, is there? Banks hits him with a drop kick instead. Coffee and Banks are in the corner, and Mastiff hits the cannonball. Mastiff goes for a pin, but Devlin flies off the top rope with a moonsault to break the pin up. That's a little convoluted, but it worked. Mastiff hits the Finley roll, and Banks flies in with the double stomp to break up the ensuing pin attempt. Banks is a house of fire. However, he gets interrupted by a Spanish fly from Jordan Devlin. Coffee is off the top rope, but takes Mastiff out. He hits all the best for the bells on Devlin, covers him, but Mastiff breaks that pin up. He hits all the best on Mastiff as well, and they both tumble to the floor. But quickly, Travis Banks takes advantage of the opportunity, hits the slice of heaven on Jordan Devlin, followed by the Kiwi Crusher, your number 1 contender for the NXT UK Championship. Ladies and gentlemen, Le Kiwi Bazaar, Travis Banks. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. Commentary was putting over the fact that it sucked that, Travis Banks was so close to winning the UK tournament last year. He was kicked out, injured out of storyline, of course, storyline injured out of the first takeover. He has had legitimate injuries and has fought back. So they really put this over as a success story, as a well-earned opportunity, long time coming. And I agree. Travis Banks is fantastic. He's had he's been a solid presence on NXT UK. The Clash of Styles with Walter should be a blast. It should be a lot of fun. Next week, we are getting, let's not forget, the British Strong Style Boys versus the Imperium. That should be a lot of fun. You know what was a lot of fun? Doing my recap this evening. But as all amusing things, folks, they must come to an end. But then I return next week and it becomes amusing again. You see how that goes? I want to thank everyone for taking the time to listen to this. If you were here live, thank you very much. If you're listening at your own leisure, thank you very much. And what's even more fantastic and significant is your support of Fightful. Being a Fightful Select member is really the best way to show that you really appreciate our work here, that you do want us to go on. So we do thank you. Thank you very much for tuning in, for joining us, for listening to me, and I will see you next time.